Hey YouTube, what's up? Lightsaber Samurai here, back again for another video, and this time we got another versus series coming up, and this time we are taking a look at two pivotal first-person shooters from the 6th generation. Of course, I'm talking about Halo 2 on the original Xbox versus Killzone on the PlayStation 2. Now, some of you may already be thinking this is a wash, considering how iconic the original Halo was and how iconic its successor Halo 2 was. But we are going to take a closer look at both games, going to look at the gameplay features, everything from the single player to the multiplayer, and what I found may surprise you. So, without further ado, Halo 2 versus Killzone, let's talk about it. Alright, so first up, let's talk about Halo 2 on the original Xbox, and I have it right here. Halo 2, of course, the highest selling game on the original Xbox, sold more copies than any other game on the system, and for good reason. This game was a sequel to Halo Combat Evolved that launched with the Xbox in 01, and man, did they improve this game in basically every single way. The graphics were greatly improved, a lot more detail in it, even though it did have some texture pop in here and there. The set pieces were more grandiose in design and scale. The multiplayer took a huge leap. Where the multiplayer was good in the first one, the multiplayer in Halo 2 was revolutionary, and it coming around the time that Xbox Live really started to pop off. It was the most played game on Xbox Live, and that was really the game that put everybody on to online multiplayer. I know there were games that came out before it, but that was the game that definitely got me in it, that definitely got most people I know into online multiplayer. LAN parties with Halo 2 were epic and legendary, and I'd like to host one of my own again in the near future. But man, just the impact of the multiplayer cannot be stated enough. Let's talk a little bit about the story. The story of Halo 2 takes place right after the events of the original Halo, with the Master Chief linking back up with the Earth, with what are they called? The Space Marines and everybody from planet Earth. He's actually being congratulated on his efforts, and the Commander Keyes, he was posthumously being congratulated on his efforts. And it starts off with the good guys in a huge ceremony where everybody's there. Johnson's there, and everybody's asking how he survived, but of course he was just such a fan favorite character. I think developers just brought him back. I think he really was meant to die in the first one, but like I said, he's there, everybody's having a good time. The cool part about that is, parallel to that, the other playable character in the campaign is the Arbiter, and he was actually one of the elites that was in charge of the defense of Halo in the first game. So Master Chief's efforts in the first game brought great shame to him, and he was ultimately branded and punished for that and sentenced to death. But at the last minute, the Prophets decided to make him the next Arbiter to go on these suicide missions for the Covenant, and which he gracefully agrees. He wants to redeem himself and get to a position where maybe he can get his revenge on the Master Chief. Like I said, the aliens accidentally stumble onto the Earthlings in their defense grid outside the planet Earth, and all hell breaks loose. We later find out later in that game and in Halo 3 that they're moving to Earth to search for a device called the Ark, but more on that in Halo 3. Like I said, that kicks off the chain of the events in Halo 2, and the story, like I said, is very good. I remember playing through the story, and one of the things that I remember is I just felt like a hero. The music was on point. Like I said, the graphics was on point, and the writing was on point. And apologies, you'll probably hear my cats in the background. They like to get really active around this time, and they're playing, and I'm trying to shoo them back upstairs, but they don't want to go. So, sorry, mini rant over. Just, ignore the awkward meows in the background. But, like I said, the story mode of Halo 2, I knocked through it in about 5 to 7-ish hours. The cool thing about it is you can take it on co-op multiplayer, and me and my brothers always used to take turns going through that game together and bumping it on the highest difficulty and plowing through the game. Like I said, it made for a great time. a lot of the new features in it. I like the floaty jumps of Halo. You really kind of feel like a super soldier. Some people complain about that. I like the floaty jumps. I like the addition of dual wielding. That made you feel just super badass when it came to, you know, dual wielding machine guns and dual wielding pistols and things like that. And like I said, all in all, it was a good time. I played that game to death several times. It's been, you know, re-released since, and I've been going through it on my Xbox One. It's been bringing back a lot of memories. And like I said, Halo 2, it earns every bit of its accolades as far as being an iconic shooter, because there was nothing like it before. Even GoldenEye on the 64, I know a lot of people cite that as the first console shooter that did it right, in which they're probably right about that. I would agree, but Halo was on a whole nother level in my opinion. So that's it for Halo. Now let's talk about Killzone. Okay, now in the same year, in 2004, Sony Entertainment released Killzone, and people are wondering why I'm pitting the mighty Halo 2 against Killzone. Well, if you are of the era and you remember when this game came out, the magazines were toting that as a Halo killer, and that's why I wanted to put it out. Like I said, the developers at Sony, they really pushed the PlayStation to its limits at the time to try to create a game that was on par with Halo, because a lot of people, if you don't know, the Halo games themselves could not be done on the other consoles, mainly because it had to it was pulling data off the hard drive of the original Xbox, which it was the only console of the 6th generation that had a built-in hard drive. So games like Halo really weren't possible on the other systems. So Sony, you know, they were doing other things to kind of squeeze the juice out of the Emotion engine to try to get a game that was on par with Halo, and largely I think they succeeded. This game takes place in the distant future, and it is a war between human factions. There's a colony of Vecta that was settled by the humans, but before that they had settled another colony called Heligon, and the atmospheric abnormalities were not detected at first when the colonists got there, so they started to have issues like losing their hair and paling of skin, and so basically the whole planet looks like a bunch of Sith Lords on it. But anyway, they started to have issues with the colonists on Vecta, and so Heligon and Vecta went to war, but the humans on Vecta were eventually victorious, and you know, the Heligon Empire was left broken and without a leader until Vasari rose to power. And in the opening movie, like I said, the graphics super on point. I was very impressed with the opening cinematics to Killzone the first time I watched it, and he's sitting there like Adolf Hitler, just getting everybody hyped up. And this is 10 years later, and he's rebuilt the army and rebuilt the fighting spirit and the pride of the people, and so everybody's behind him 110%. So when he gathers his forces and he goes to attack Vecta once again, they are all in, and war ensues. And so this is where the story of the original Killzone takes place. Interestingly enough, like Halo 2, they stumble upon this defense grid that's circling Vecta, but the defense grid is rendered powerless. The Heligons were somehow able to bypass, the orbital ring of battle stations that are surrounding the planet. They touch down on the surface, and so it's up to the 4 playable characters that you have in this game to beat them back. You have, your regular soldier and guys like Templar. You got your Rico, your heavy weapons specialist, who's totally not Dom from Gears of War. You've got, I can't remember her name, it's a chick who's the Shadow Marshal, who's kind of like the sneaky stealth character. And then there's Haka, who's the operative, and he's half Helgen himself. And so it's cool because they have technology like traps that are made, for Hellgas, and he's able to sneak through them and stuff. Like I said, the graphics, like I said, on a more powerful system, if you play this game, definitely play the remaster version on PS3. The graphics on the PS2 are really good, but it kind of reminds me of Shadow of the Colossus in the sense that just the system isn't quite optimized to play the game. There's a lot of there's some slowdown, a lot of texture pop in, and in some parts, you're looking at a lot of frame rate drops. But overall, the action is pretty smooth. Like I said, it's got a not as colorful as Halo 2. It's got a really drab gray overlay of a lot of games that were starting to, you know, take to that during that time period. And that's one thing I didn't mention about Halo. As far as the colors, Halo is very colorful and vibrant in comparison. And thinking about that, when I'm thinking about level design, I really think Halo has it in the level design. A lot of kind of urban, kind of war-torn, depressed environments in Killzone, and Halo 2 takes for the more exotic as far as temples, and they've got like ancient looking cities where they have large plateaus and mountainscapes and valleys and rivers and caves and more natural type settings. And so overall, I think the level design in Halo was much better. Graphics, I also got to give it to Halo simply because I think the graphics run better, or the game runs better on the Xbox. But one thing that I really do like as far as the graphics in Killzone better is the animations. In particular, the melee combat was really cool. Halo kind of had that stiff animation, you know, the pull, you know, the elbow strikes, and like I said, it's cool, and it's something that I fondly remember. But when you think back, and Killzone has these slick like combos that you can do with the knife, and you know, the pistol whip with the gun and stuff like that. I really love the fact that they are able to animate like them climbing up the ladder, and you can see each hand. Just little touches like that with the animation. The animation was on point in Killzone, and like I said, very realistic animations with the death, something that Halo didn't have. You know, enemies were kind of just bullet sponges and then they just fall over. But like I said, the animations in Killzone, I mean, definitely had Halo matched. As far as the multiplayer, I didn't play a lot of Killzone's multiplayer back in the day, but again, I think Halo's multiplayer just can't be denied. The multiplayer experience on Halo was the best of the 6th generation period. I can't think of another game that had multiplayer as good as Halo. In my opinion, I think SOCOM was close, sort of close, but like I said, it's really not a contest. Halo's multiplayer is overall better. Story-wise, I think the story of Halo is slightly better as well, although I think the storyline of Killzone is totally overrated. It kind of, honestly, it kind of reminds me of like, you know, a Neo World War II type scenario. And I mean, you know, the Helghast are definitely the Nazi Empire, and you know, the leader is definitely Hitler, and you know, just the political intrigue, and it goes on. It spans a trilogy, but like I said, I'm rambling. If I had to pick between Halo 2 and Killzone, like I said, Killzone did some things very well in the single player campaign. The animations were on point. I do like the setting and the story, but I think Halo takes the edge as far as things like the weaponry, and you can drive vehicles in Halo, and just the graphics of it, I think for the most part were better in Halo. The multiplayer experience in Halo is second to none. So if I had to pick, I would say Halo definitely is the winner, but Killzone is incredibly underrated. This is not the blowout that most people probably think it is, and if you do, I encourage you to go back and play both games. Both games still hold up extremely well, even playing them on their original hardware. You've been seeing the gameplay footage from that, and both games look really good even today. And like I said, you can get the remastered version. Well, it's not remastered, but it's an HD version of Killzone. They have a Killzone collection on the PlayStation 3, and I definitely suggest playing the original Killzone on the PlayStation 3 because you'll see the game as it was meant to be played back in 2004. And like I said, it's very sharp, very clean, and like I said, and all the rest. But winner, Halo 2. Alright guys, so that's all I got for you, but let's lay it down below. Questions, comments, concerns, threats. Who do you think takes this? Like I said, Halo 2 was an iconic game, and I do think it takes the edge. Or do you disagree and think that Killzone is the hidden gem that definitely became the Halo killer? As always, I'm Lightsaber Samurai. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and peace.